Hey guys, it's your host Julian. This week I'm sitting down with storyboard artist for Primal, David Krentz. We talk how David got onto the show, what it was like premiering the first couple episodes at San Diego Comic-Con. We also discuss the episode that David won the Emmy with. Last piece of housekeeping before we roll into this episode. If you guys like what you hear, if you like what you see, go and check us out on Patreon, where you can have access to early and ad-free content, a special shout out in our monthly newsletter, question priority for all of our guests, and a Patreon exclusive video every month. Just click that link in the description below and it'll take you to the Patreon page. Don't forget, like I said, if you are enjoying this show and you're listening, drop us a rating and a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this episode. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to What's My Head podcast. I'm your host, Julian. Today I'm joined by Mr. David Krentz, storyboard artist for Primal. David, how are you, sir?
I am doing good. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. I've been looking forward to this one for so long. Primal. Obviously, it's been some time. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't finished season 2, I don't know what you're waiting for. Go back and hit pause on this. Come back, please, and listen. But check out the end of Primal season 2 because there's a bunch of spoilers. This show, man, how'd you get on this show to begin with? We'll start from there, and then we'll see where the conversation goes.
Oh, all right. Well, so Gendy and I had a little bit of history. I went to Cal Arts way back in the early Cretaceous, I think, and living across the hall from me, a couple of years behind me in school was Gendy. Mm-hmm. So we lived across the hall from each other, and we talked, chatted. We were kind of really in the same circles. His style was very different than mine, but his whole class was just amazing. I mean,
yeah,
they were incredible.
Quite a few of them.
Yeah, quite a few of them. And I was running with Mark Andrews, Brian Andrews, kind of that group, Tony Ceruno, but we never worked together. We all went in the industry after that, and then literally almost 18 years later, after last time I saw him, he was working on a dinosaur film. Mm-hmm. It was a realistic dinosaur film, CG animated, and then he was working with Brian Andrews at the time, and I was hanging out with Brian. He says, Gendy's doing this dinosaur show, and it's pretty cool. And I'm looking at Bri going, Bri, you know what I do, right? I'm the dinosaur guy. And he's like, oh, I guess I'll talk to Gendy, So anyway, long story short, Gendy hired me as a production designer and storyboard artist, character designer on that show. And it was pretty amazing for me as a dinosaur guy, just designing dinosaurs and boarding it and all. And so Gendy and I he saw how I worked, and we had a very similar thing. That show was completely wordless, which is something I'm such a fan of. Love that stuff. And then also it's just eventually, we didn't really hang out in Cal Arts at all, but I mean his influences were wow, we kind of do have the same stuff, like Conan and kind of really good silent storytelling material. And so I guess he saw that I could tell a story with no words whatsoever, and I guess it sort of started there. And then he kind of hired me back for the last season of Samurai Jack after that dinosaur show fell through. Mm-hmm. And he hired me back for one show on Samurai Jack. So I did that. It was the one with the wolf. Yes. In the last season, and he meets Ashi. And then, and then when Primal came around, he called me about that. And I was like, yeah, man, this is again, silent story. And my episode of Samurai Jack, again, it was a lot of very quiet storytelling, just him and the wolf. And it kind of turned out good. Just meeting him again, years and years and years later, and realize wow, we really did have a lot in common. But we just ran in different circles. I was in Disney feature. I'd never done TV, And then I went into live action, and that's a whole other world. And then Yeah, so my first TV gig was, I think, Samurai Jack.
Man, what a way to come into the TV universe, right? Coming with Gendy on the
Yeah,
Samurai Jack, and then you rotate into Primal shortly after, man.
yeah. I was really thrilled because I loved Samurai Jack. And I was so proud of my friends for having worked on that. Mark Andrews, Brian Andrews, and just how great the storytelling was. My kids loved it, and then so being part of that legacy was, even if it was just one episode, I was like, yes. Yeah, I was really happy about that, and that was like one of the best rap parties I'd ever been to. It was.
So do tell, why was this the best, or will any of this get you into trouble?
Well, it was like a screening rap party. I forget where they rented, somewhere in LA, but it was this big theater. It was amazing theater. I mean, it was literally a set from hell. I mean, they lit it with all these red lights and all this crazy Gothic architecture hanging from the ceiling. I try and get the name of the theater again, but there were like a huge crowd outside trying to get in because they were screening the first 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And this huge crowd outside trying to get in. And then the people who worked on the show, we all went upstairs and had drinks and, all that stuff. And then they had to let more people in for a second screening. And the energy from the crowd, they were just hungry to see more Jack. These are people who had grown up on it. And now they were, all young adults and just hungry for more. And it was amazing. And then the show started, and they had Tyler Bates come out with this like electric this like electric violin thing, and just drums, the taiko drums, and I had no idea this was supposed to happen. And he was playing songs from the show, and I had a whole bunch of drinks before that, and I was just like, what is happening? And the lighting was incredible, and I'm like, the crowd was so wild. It was a really amazing experience. And then the show started, and then, you see your name come up on screen, and then you're watching your work, and yeah, it was just a really amazing. The energy was insane. It was so good.
How long were you running on that high, that adrenaline rush? I gotta imagine it's pretty difficult to come down from something like that.
From Jack?
Yeah, just from that party, because seeing.
Oh my God, I'm still talking about it today. My wife and I are just like, yeah, that was, because we've been to a lot of parties. Yeah, I've been to, like, Avengers and all those Marvel things and tons of Disney feature parties, but that one was just, the energy was insane, and it was really cool to be at a rap party with fans. That was the big difference.
That's pretty cool, man. Like I said, we'll jump around here just a little bit, but Primal, man. I just had Aaron LaPlante on not too long ago. Obviously, the voice of Spirit. It's such a cool dude. I mean, just getting to hear like his side. And then, because he told the story about you guys all going to San Diego Comic-Con, and then them showing the first episode of the first season, and then he said he was just blown away. He was like, I look out, and he was like, I didn't say anything. He was like, I was just walking around with everybody. I was trying to absorb everything. He's like, because it was crazy.
Yeah.
When this show aired, I think it aired, a couple episodes aired right before COVID happened, and everybody got sent home. I think it might have finished, during that first year of COVID, but this show blew me away right off the bat. Like, I can echo the same sentiment you were talking about. I love silent cartoons, right?
Yeah.
Because, hearing and talking to the people, a lot of those people you were talking about that Gendy ran around with, as far as the Cal Arts guys, like the Craig McCrackens, the Randy Myers. I've had Robert Alvarez as longtime director. So I've had a bunch of people that have worked with him firsthand, and they all say the same thing. And I think Gendy's talked about it in interviews himself, where when he came over to the States and he was growing up, he didn't understand a lot of English. So him just being able to watch something and you don't understand it, but you can know what they're doing or know what they're talking. There's something like that. And then I guess that translated into his style. And that's what animation is supposed to be. You shouldn't have to have dialogue. Even though I love dialogue, you shouldn't have to have dialogue. You should be able to understand what's going on with the characters. And then, like I said, Primal, I knew it was different because of Gendy, but then I watched the first episode and I was like, wow, the game has changed as far as adult animation goes. When you're working on Primal, obviously this question is going to sound weird, but everybody says it. He's like, you don't know what people are going to latch on to until it's out there. You hope everything's a hit. I got to imagine with something like this, maybe you guys are just in the weeds so much you don't really have time to think about this. But did you guys know you were onto something with the show Primal while you were working on it before it was released?
No.
Really?
No.
That's so insane to think about, though.
And and for me, it was, I saw the first 5 episodes. Yeah, that came out pre-COVID, those ones. So I saw the first 5 episodes of those, and I was like, I had done the Mammoth one, in that one, and again, you don't know what people are going to latch onto, which episode they're going to like the best and whatnot. And it was always a surprise to me that the one that I won the Emmys for, the Plague of Madness,
Terrifying.
I had no idea that one would resonate with people. And I mean, even Gendy said, I think there's better episodes. And I'm like, I honestly believe so too. I think there's better episodes. Yeah. But that one just seemed to click. And I don't know. Part of it for me, I wonder, is just because they did that April 1st. So this was basically 2 weeks, 3 weeks after COVID, and everyone was in a lockdown. And then April 1st came and Cartoon Network decided to air the Plague of Madness without any warning whatsoever. Right. And the weird thing was, it wasn't the next episode after those first 5. It was episode 7, not 6. Yeah. And so it was, but man, people responded to that, and I don't know, maybe that episode just tapped into a zeitgeist at the time, just this awful disease that you can't run away from. Mm-hmm. You need to face it. It's just sad, the loss from it, all of it, and I really think it tapped into that. I think that had a lot to do with how that one hit, but we didn't know it would hit. We really didn't,
Yeah, I mean, everybody was kind of starved for content. They were starved for something at that point. I mean, being locked up for a couple weeks now, we didn't know it was going to turn into quite a few months. Yeah. And then that show was so creepy. And Aaron brought that one up. It was a very creepy show, right? Yeah. I remember watching in the dark, and I was like, everybody's asleep, and I'm like, man, I got to kind of turn on the lights because it just felt like something was over your shoulder.
Yeah.
I don't do horror movies for that reason. I don't like being scared, but it was just that one just felt. You just felt like the creepy crawlies, it just felt like your skin was crawling.
Yeah, it was weird. And I don't know, I mean, I boarded it when we weren't in COVID. It was I think during the summer before. And I would just go to a coffee shop with just pencil and paper, and just, we had the treatment. Basically, that's it. A little 1.5 page thing of, we kind of want this to happen, and so I would just thumbnail this out, and that one came pretty fast, if there's been a few lightning in the bottle times in my life, in my career, that was one of them. It just came out. It was I was boarding almost. I felt part of the chase, just oh, and then this happens. Oh, and then wouldn't it be cool that happens? And then, it just kind of kept this happens and this happens. So I got through it pretty quick, and then I stepped through the thumbs with Gendy, and he was just like, dude, this is it. Really? No changes? Maybe a little here and here, but he changed the ending a little bit, which I think it needed, but yeah, it was pretty cool. Lightning in the bottle, and it all just clicked.
And you got your name mentioned on a trophy that you'll have for the rest of your life, and your kids will be able to go, Dad did that episode, man. So I got to imagine that feels pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And what was nice about it, I don't know if you can see them back there on the table. Yeah. But what's cool about it is one of them was for writing, and the other one was for just boarding the episode. What are the outstanding artistic achievement for something, blah blah blah. Yeah. So it's kind of cool. So the one was specifically me, but I was actually pretty happy with the writing one, because Gendy knows Even though Derek Bachman's our writer, and he's amazing. But it's nice too to kind of be included in that, because a lot of boarding, especially in feature animation, is like a lot of the story happens in the storyboards.
Yeah.
And you very rarely get credited for that, but it's kind of nice that Gendy and everybody included the board artists in that we have writer credit at the end of the show, which is pretty amazing,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Man, that's cool, man. Thanks for sharing that. With, like I said, we're gonna jump all over the place, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna do probably part 2, but you guys won't know. I mean, you'll know because we're gonna be wearing different clothes. But we're gonna splice this together a little bit later. So what I'll do is I'll save the fans' questions for the end instead of doing it now, so I don't have to split them up. But flash forwarding to season 2, man. Like I said, I loved how it went. What was it, 10 episodes the first season? Like, it went everything, and like it literally ends on Spear saying the first word ever uttered in this, and it's just Mira. I'm like, oh, he can talk. I was like, oh my god. And then, did you ever play? I've asked this question before to other people, but did you ever play World of Warcraft?
Oh heck yeah!
All right, so anytime, and you're the first person that's actually said, yeah, man, I played it. And I was like, now I don't have to really explain all this. But it's like whenever an expansion starts, like the whole video goes and then it's opening up the next continent. That's what that moment felt like to me watching Primal, that last episode of season 1, where he goes Mira and then you see everything. I'm like, oh, this is a World of Warcraft event. This is opening up the entire world to Spear, and then you open up his whole quest is trying to find Mira for season 2. This, everybody that I've ever seen talk about this, they said season 1 was so much better than season 2. I don't think so. I mean, season 2, you guys hit a stride. Like, I think you already knew where you were going once you finished season 1, and then season 2 picks up, and it's just like banger after banger after banger. Like, every episode hits. It's building from that word Mira. But do you remember what episode you started with on season 2 as far as boarding and writing goes?
Yeah, that would have been the second one where Fang meets Red.
Fang meets Red.
Yeah,
and we got a lot of questions about the dinosaurs too. So like I said, I'll save that for the second part. A lot of people. Well, we'll throw a free question out there. Our first question, man. What's your favorite dinosaur? There's a lot of people that wanted to know what was David's favorite dinosaur.
Oh, geez. I'd have to say Gorgosaurus.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Like my son.
It's like a very graceful version of T-Rex.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the Walking with Dinosaurs 3D movie.
Maybe
it was basically the main dinosaur bad guy in that one. So.
Did you see the last Jurassic Park movie, Jurassic Dominion?
No, I have avoided it. I am not. I have past the first 2. I'm done.
It wasn't bad. It was fun. It was fun, but I wonder if that's the same, because it looked like one of the Spinosauruses met a T-Rex. They had a baby, and it was just very elongated. It had these weird droopy arms and stuff. So I wonder if that was the one. Like, because whenever I watch them with my son. My son's super into dinosaurs. Like,
oh really?
Oh, okay. Man, all these. His first job that he said, I want to say this is like 6-7 years ago. He just turned, or he'll be 13 in January. But he was like the first job. I asked him, he was like, what do you want to do when you get older? He's like, dude, I want to be a ninja that snorkels / scuba dives that also hunts for dinosaur bones. And I was like, bro, that's 3 really good jobs. I mean, I don't know if you'll be able to do all of that at once. You might want to just. He's like, nah, I can do it because there's gonna be dinosaur bones underwater. I was like, yeah.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I understand that. And he was like, I might have to fight somebody off if they find the bones. Yeah. And I was like, well, man, you kind of got me here. So follow your dreams, kids. He's working the first part. He's got his brown belt in Kempo karate. So he's working.
All right. Well, when he gets older, I can hook him up with a paleontology part.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I'll let him know. I don't even know where we were going. Oh, favorite dinosaur. That's where we were going.
Dinosaurs, right?
Yeah. Triceratops always been my guy.
I mean, like dinosaurs and animation are they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You know? When I saw King Kong as a kid, I was just like the 33 version of King Kong. I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And then I bought I don't know if you remember Cinefex. They had I bought the version of Willis O'Brien and Cinefex. And just reading, how they and stop mode these dinosaurs. I was like, oh my god! And then Land of the Lost. At this, it was just like, and this is like the '70s. If I'm going to age myself here, but making stop mo films with clay with dinosaurs in them, and yeah, so it was always hand in hand.
Well, my interaction with dinosaurs is going to be a lot less romantic than yours. Mine was actually the Power Rangers. That I was born in '89, so seeing the Power Rangers and the Green Ranger before he turned into the White Ranger. I don't know if you ever watched too much of the Power Rangers back in the '90s, but he was a bad guy. Yeah, no, most people didn't. Most people didn't past my age. But the Triceratops, like I said, has always been a cool looking dinosaur. I always thought he was really cool. I was like, man, that'd be a cool dinosaur to ride around on.
Here, I'm going to show you my new one. Hold on. Give me a second. Okay, yeah, this is going to go really well in the podcast, but this is my new, cool. I sculpted this one.
You did that?
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I sculpt them in, ZBrush, and I 3D print them and sell them as resin kits or bronzes, and yeah. So.
Oh, that is so awesome. Do you have a store for that? All the links that you'll ever want will be in the description. Do you have a store for that where people can go in?
There's a guy, Dan's Dinosaurs sells my stuff now. Okay. So I can send that link to you guys.
Yeah, cool.
I've been doing this stuff since 97. I was working on Disney's Dinosaur. I was a lead character designer on that. And just as a catharsis to putting lips on, or kissy faces on dinosaurs, I had to just like, all right, I need to make some real dinosaurs and just get this out of my. So ever since then, I've been like, making these things and selling them, and it's sort of, I guess it keeps my artistic identity. It has nothing to do with film. It's just
absolutely. That's really cool.
Me and scientists, and it's just love it. So it's totally different.
Yeah, I mean, I can completely understand that, man, because I cook for a living, right? I'm in the restaurant industry. And it's fun, but it's also probably, I was in the military for a little while too. So I've been in places where people absolutely hate you just because of where you come from, or, you just look different than everybody else. And I've never had that much stress when I was in the military compared to in a kitchen where I get to go home at the end of every single night. And I was deployed 3 times. I didn't get to go home every single night. So that's just saying something. So I do this for a living. And then it's funny. Most people in my profession don't do anything with food outside of what they do because you cook all day. Nobody wants to cook when they go home. I'm that rare breed that whenever I get home, I love, like, whatever I've learned that week, whatever I've tried differently. I like to implement at home because I don't have somebody over my shoulder, and I love the guys I work for. I don't have somebody over my shoulder. It's like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. I just get to do whatever I want. I put on some music, or I put on show Primal, and then I cook and I watch and I veg out essentially. So it's something nice, and like you said earlier, cathartic about doing something that you really enjoy, but you're not really on the clock for, if that makes any sense.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, I still keep it up, and now I have my own 3D printer, so it's like the Santa Claus machine. I can just like, because I used to sculpt in clay all the time, and that was fun. But being a father of 3, I mean, the times where you can just sit in your garage for hours on end and wax poetic, and it's like those days are gone. So I was an early adopter of ZBrush, like. I bought it version 1.5, I think, in 2004, and I've been using it ever since to make these things, and so
beautiful, man. So sticking on Primal season 2 for just a few, what was your favorite episode you got to board on this?
Oh man, the one I would say Plague was really good to board on. The Mammoth one was the first one I did, whatever that, a cold death, I guess. So I was kind of getting the feel for the show at that point, and just how, like when he takes the rock and just like smashes the mammoth in the eye. I was like, let's just do that and see how that flies. And it's like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, really? because I was watching it with my daughter, and she just like screamed and ran out of the room. This is the worst thing you've ever done, like, okay, that's where we're going with this show.
We want
So it's kind of
emotion.
getting my chops there and just kind of seeing how far you could go with the acting of the animals.
Mhm.
But I think honestly, like the episode with Mira, I really enjoyed. Just because that dynamic was so cool, and I got to do a lot of it was kind of a little bit of there's a little bit of love triangle kind of thing going on, and I think the same thing happened in later on with Shadow of Fate. Is that the name of it, where she meets Red? Fang meets Red.
I think
kind
so.
of same thing, sort of the love triangle, and I kind of like that dynamic. The one episode 10 in season 1 was Fang was a little more like just like a big dog that was jealous of the girlfriend moving in, but I really enjoyed that one because you got to see a side of Fang, or sorry, of Spear that you really hadn't before. So maybe a little in some flashbacks and things like that, but
Humanized him.
yeah.
As stupid as that sounds, you humanized a human. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the religious element came in. She's connected to a larger world. That stuff just felt right to me. It just felt right. And I also love doing some of the acting with Fang, like when he's climbing up the rocks and he's just like, when they first meet her and she's backed up against the cliff, just staring at her, it's like that was so well animated too,
the expressions you do with these dinosaurs, and you specifically, before I go down that road, did you do the Red Mist episode as well?
No, that was Mark Andrews.
Okay. In my opinion, that episode is, I don't even have words for it, dude. It's just, I've watched that episode at least once a week since I saw it air, like 4 or 5 weeks ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
That episode, phenomenal, man. But the expressions that you do in particular with your episodes, I absolutely, oh man, I love the artwork back there, man. In particular, the expression like you were talking about when they're making that climb up the mountain, and you just see Fang, and it's just like I'm unsure about climbing up there, so I'm unsure about jumping into water, or I'm unsure about doing this. How you guys convey emotion, how you guys convey the thought process of a dinosaur. And I don't want to make it sound like it's very simple, but it's in 22 minutes, what you guys can do in 22 minutes with characters that don't speak very much, that aren't from the same species, that we don't have any kind of connection with, because I hope we didn't grow up with dinosaurs, at least, because that'd be terrifying. It's just second to none, man. I've never seen a show where I can sit here and watch, like, I can just look at this dinosaur and I know what it's thinking. I know what its plans are. I know what its motivations are. I know what its drive is. Hasn't said anything, and it's just the simple of I can't raise just one eyebrow like The Rock, but the raise of an eyebrow, or just the corner of the mouth coming up or coming down to show it's happy or sad or anything like that. It's just how much of that is coming from you? How much of that is coming from tutelage from people like Gendy or whoever is just checking out your boards on a day-to-day basis? I can imagine a lot of it's coming from you, but
I mean, the original boards, absolutely. But part of we worked on that other dinosaur show. It was called Giants. Like I mentioned before, we worked on that dinosaur show for almost a year, and so we had fully boarded the whole thing, and some scenes 2 or 3 times. So we kind of knew this could be done, and we knew how far to push it. And I'd done a ton of dinosaur stuff before where it was like that. But so there was a little bit of practice there, and I think Gendy kind of knew that we can do this, so I would put it in my boards and stuff and try not to get too cheesy. You just kind of treat him as a big dog, you know. I mean, I always say this whenever I'm on a show or something and there's a realistic creature and they're all worried about it showing emotion, so they've got to build in eyebrows and a mouth that can move, and it's got to emote more and more human. I'm like, no, seriously?
Yeah.
I mean, an iguana can look at you, blink, and turn its head, and you give it emotion, right?
Yeah.
You put your feelings into it, and it may not be correct. For all we know, dogs could be just total jerks and hate our guts, for all we know, but we dump ourselves into it. And it's really just really simple body language, like, a tilt of the head, that's curiosity, sitting up a little bit more, that's, being taken aback. At least in Primal, that being animated, it's like I mean, dinosaurs can't really move their eyebrows at all. It's just a fixed postorbital, and it could, but in live action, it's just simply you would just tip the head down and you would get an angry eye, you know. But in Primal, at least, hey, he could move his eyes up and down. He could move the corner of his mouth. So there's a lot more there to work with. But you just treat it like a big dog. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone can dump their emotions on it. And then the same thing happened with Spear. Mm-hmm. There were so many times where I'd be boarding it and I'd show Gendy, and then we'd just go, you know what, do we really need to spell this out? Like what he's thinking. And it was just like, you know what? I think this is one of those times. I think the audience is gonna, with the music and everything, the audience is gonna put themselves in his place and dump their own baggage in there.
Yeah. Without
the character saying it. And therefore it'll actually meet a broader audience, and there were a lot of times where that was totally intentional. Like, let's just leave it like this and see what people put into it.
Yeah.
And that is, so many people tell me, I love it when Spear is thinking this, and I was like, well, that's not really, but I'm glad you got that, that's really cool. You watch like review videos online and, oh, look at this, he's thinking that. I'm like, okay, he could be,
So. That's something I've always tried to stay away from, because I'm the best fan and also the worst fan of anything I'm into. There's movies out there that people absolutely hate. They think it kills a universe. But I enjoyed, because going to the movies, and I've said this so many times on this podcast, ladies and gentlemen, so I apologize, it's like my Disney World for what kids are, right? So I go there, I love the smell of popcorn, I love the red carpets, even though I hate stepping in gum, I love the tackiness that you step into when you go into a movie theater. Somebody spilled something, you stepped in gum, something like, I love I love to romanticize about going to the movies, right? Yeah. And getting to do this, like watching these shows, I always hate trying to put my personal opinion on what that thing was thinking of. So when I say I'm the best fan and the worst fan, if I'm entertained for 2 hours, if I'm transported to a different place for an hour and a half, 20 minutes, whatever it is, I love this stuff. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks or what anybody says. So whenever I watch something with somebody, or whenever I explain something to somebody, especially Primal in particular, I got to go, like, hey man, he's like, well, what do you think? I was like, no, don't listen to what I'm going to think, because I'm going to tell you something that's probably wrong. You got to experience this show for yourself. There's a couple things that I've got like a kick in the nuts guarantee for, and Primal's one of them. If you're into comic books, it's always been Scott Snyder's run on Batman, with him and Greg Capullo. There's a few books out there as well, that if you don't like this, man, you can kick me in the nuts, because like if I put my stamp of approval. So my sack's on the line for you guys is what I'm getting at, David. And you guys haven't let me down. Nobody's kicked me in the sack yet over Primal. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. As we start to wind down here, I know you only got a couple more minutes. The 2 questions that I gave you up front, and we'll end it with that, and then we'll roll right into fans' questions the next time we talk. You got 4 plus 1, so 4 people on your Mount Rushmore plus an honorable mention. Animators, I've heard Van Halen's come up here, people's wives and husbands have come up as inspiration, but who's on David's Mount Rushmore and an honorable mention?
God, yeah, I don't know, this changes all the time depending on where you are in life.
Absolutely. I got 7 episodes back to back to back to back where the only consistency, or the only constant, is Gendy, so I know what you mean.
Okay, I would say filmmakers. I think let's just start with the obvious here. Filmmakers. I think Ridley Scott, Ridley Scott. Growing up with Alien, The Duelists. Oh my gosh. Uh, Blade Runner. And again, if you look at those, a lot of it is visual storytelling. You can turn the sound down on all of those and get it,
Hmm.
you know. Yeah, and it's just really subtle stuff. I love early Ridley Scott. Um,
That first
yeah.
Alien movie is terrifying
Oh
because
my
there is
God.
no words. It's all suspense. You're all left there going, when is this alien gonna? Ah, it's right there. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's quick 2 seconds.
My babysitter brought me to see it when I was 11 years old. So
Wow.
yeah, it just hey, dude, it was the 70s. It's like
Yeah.
I'm sure I was like smoking a cigarette and drinking a bourbon at the same time. Um, but yeah, so that's a clear winner. Oh my God, I'd have to say somewhere between Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen. Just just the stop motion. Also, they put so much character into creatures without words.
Mhm.
Same thing. Like Kong is amazing. That little 18-inch puppet, what they could get away with was pretty cool. So that's another one filmmaker wise. Oh my God, this is so hard.
I know. I love this question. I love these two questions that I ask every episode.
Yeah, filmmakers. Okay, I'm just sticking with filmmakers now because it's. Oh man. Okay. A lot of these are going to be the same. Oh, you know what? Jean-Jacques Anard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that the one
Quest
that
for
is?
Fire.
Did he
I
pass away?
Quest for Fire. I kept telling Gendy, like, you have to watch Quest for Fire.
I'm gonna write that one
He
down.
never would. Oh my God, it's Ron Perlman's best. Yeah. So Quest for Fire. Again, it's silent storytelling. No one's saying a word. They're saying caveman-y things, but the it's really powerful, that was the one that showed me you can put yourself in these characters,
Yeah.
and feel what you're gonna feel. Oh, I feel isolation, like when Luke Skywalker walks up and stands and sees the two suns and the music score hits. As a kid, that one was just like, oh, that hit me. I
Hmm.
mean, I saw it in the theater and I was just like, I feel that way.
Yes.
I don't know why, but I feel this way.
Hmm.
You know, I don't know, maybe growing up in Winnipeg, Canada, and feeling there was something else for me. I don't know. Um, that brings me to maybe another one. I mean, it's hard to ignore the George Lucas influence.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have to say Lucas, like the first two Star Wars films, and yeah. Oh my God! And then there's Spielberg. Damn it.
Well, you still got an honorable mention. So is Spielberg the honorable mention?
Spielberg too, like Jaws and Close Encounters and E.T. Um, oh my God, a whole bunch of other ones. Oh my God, I rewatched Empire of the Sun. Is that what it's called? Empire of the Sun? Yeah. Yes. And some of his silent storytelling shots where he gets so much story into just one shot,
Hmm.
just amazing work. And it's
Yeah.
and it's sometimes it's not just like held, but it's like the only thing you can do in film is move from here to there to here and building a story with just the visuals,
Yes.
you know. And many times what was happening in the background had absolutely nothing to do with what was being said by the characters. It was this subtext.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so I think filmmaking wise, yeah, I'm gonna have to say those. I'm not like an animation nerd,
Yeah.
you know? It's like what I do. I've made a living at it, but I always look to live action stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird that way.
No, that's no problem at all. Like I said, Primal feels like a film. Like it just feels like one whole movie just chopped up into individual parts.
Yeah.
I've had that talk with so many people. Like you watch it and you're like, this is so much more than what we're seeing. Like, just I hate saying this word because it makes it sound like I'm very pretentious when I know what I'm talking about, which I don't know what I'm talking about. I just know what I like. Primal's a masterpiece. It's a perfect show from start to finish. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody can change my mind. And no fan, no, not even Gendy came out. I was like, no, this one wasn't really that great. No, Gendy, no. Everything's perfect about the show. But the next one, and then we'll end it here for this part.
Okay.
Two books that are on your shelves that you think every fan of animation or anybody working in animation or in the film industry, since you said you weren't an animation nerd, what two books do you think everybody should have on their shelf?
Honestly, like, I know this is such a like trope, Illusion of Life.
Oh, it's okay.
Know?
Yeah, it comes up.
Yeah, like I bought that my first year Cal Arts, it's like, you have to buy this. All right, I'll buy it. Like I say, I wasn't an animation nerd, There it is.
It's right here.
Yeah. But there are times you flip open that book and you're just like, oh wow.
You're blown away.
Like, just so much stuff you forget about, take for granted. Mm-hmm. They had to build this stuff from the ground up. I mean, it is just all so good, I mean, I think, anime has certainly influenced a lot of styles these days, and how to tell stories and camera moves and timing and all the rest of it. But still, you just got to remember that these guys like had to make this stuff up. They really
the foundation
had to figure this stuff out, and you cannot poo-poo that. You just can't, So that would be one. All right. Trying to think of another book.
It doesn't have to be on animation, but what would you recommend everybody that's into film or animation that should have on their shelves? You got one that sticks out?
Man. Oh man, I mean, I have one, but if I recommend it, it's impossible to get.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. There's plenty of books, and Alex talked.
Okay, I'm going to say this one because it really influenced me in my my staging, my lighting. I'd say some of my storytelling. It was there was this book that came out in the 70s or early 80s. It was a photo book of the movie Alien.
Okay.
Good luck finding it for under a lot of money. But it was every scene in that movie, a photograph of every scene with just like the words or the text underneath it. And it was like literally a comic book version of the film.
That's really cool.
And it wasn't like cut up into small panels. They were still the wide screen. So it was like, I kind of learned, how they're using the screen here when they go to a close-up. And I could, and when I would draw comics, as a teenager, I would always go back to that book and just study how he's setting things up and how he's telling the story. And his lighting was so good. That was another one. So as far as putting it on your bookshelf, good luck with that. But as far as what really influenced me, I would say that thing. And I still have it. I'd go to the mall and see that at the bookstore as a kid and look through it, and you'd see all the bloody pictures, cool. And then, I could never buy it because I was too young. But then later on, I got a copy in high school somehow, and it has stayed with me since. And it's just dog-eared. I mean, it's destroyed, but that one had a huge influence on me.
Beautiful. And then we'll end it here, ladies and gentlemen. We'll pick it back up.